Thank you very much for staying. Is there hope for SADA? Quite simple as that. Is there hope for SADA? Indeed, there should be hope, but where are we going to find the hope? Now, with me to discuss this issue today in this studio, to my immediate left is Dr. Emmanuel Abri-Inga, who's the Director, Integrated Development Programs for SADA. Doc, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And then Engineer Michael Kusidede, who's the Chairman for the Public and International Affairs, Ghana Institute of Engineers. Institution of Affairs. Michael, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with you, Doctor. Is there hope for SADA?
I think basically what has brought us today as evidence of the hope for SADA. Today, the Ghana Institute of Engineers and the Savannah Accelerated Development Authority earlier in the day met to launch a program which is geared towards the Engineers Week, which is held annually and which SADA seeks to benefit by a working relationship with the Ghana Institute of Engineers through our current ways of working, but also more importantly, to use the Engineers Week as a basis to bring in investors, international investors, local actors, and all people who have interest in the Northern Savannah Ecological Zone to recognize the opportunities that are there and to begin to invest from private sector through to all development actors within the Savannah Ecological Zone, SADA, as we shortly mentioned. But I think the hope has been inspired by recent changes in leadership at the level of the board and also at the level of management. And these changes, we basically know, emerged because of the public outcry of the way SADA began its operations. And we have recognized that critically, the role of SADA as set up in the Act, the mandate that gives SADA its authority to operate, clearly knew at the beginning that SADA should not be involved in implementation. SADA should be facilitating, coordinating, and catalyzing work. There are already a lot of actors on the ground, and there are evidence of duplication. And SADA's role is basically to ensure that resources are channeled to the right place and the right people implement them. We would say the initial euphoria and excitement of getting SADA to solve the problems of the Savannah area led SADA to directly get itself involved in the processes of project delivery. And now we have recognized, working with the Institution of Engineers, that we can find alternative ways that are more effective, more accountable, more reliable, and more engaging to deliver projects to the Savannah Ecological Zone. So I would say that, yes, more interest is coming on, more support is coming on, there is a better understanding of how we should work, and that offers us hope that SADA will turn around and deliver on its mandate to the people of the Savannah area.
Michael, so what do the engineers bring on board now?
Well, based on our own assessment since the election of the new current president, we agree largely as a professional body that there is a need for us to contribute a little more to national development. And one of the things we find is that there's still a lot of north-south migration, and that there's a lot of underdevelopment in the northern sector of this country. We as engineers thought it proper that one of the ways by which we can help solve the challenges of this country is to collaborate directly with bodies that are involved in development or facilitating development. And that is to bring some poles of development in other countries, in other parts of the country. So what we thought was, in the northern sector, which is the body that we can collaborate with? And we thought that SADA would be the appropriate body, especially having come up with such a brilliant initiative. Unfortunately, although it had its challenges, we thought that, look, we as a people should not give up on everything. We need to continue to inspire hope in others. And as a professional body, we thought that apart from having annual conferences where we make technical presentations and issues and walk away, we need to have a direct impact on the community and society. And that is where we then went on to have a memorandum of understanding with SADA and said that, look, we can offer you some advice, free, where we say, look, what are the things you want to engage in? What are some of the concepts that we can present to you? Then you can follow it up with looking for investors and facilitate other development agendas within the northern sector. So that is where we come in as advisors in terms of providing some, looking at engineering opportunities, promoting them to SADA, and then SADA looks at it and says, yes, we can run with this, and then they look for the investments to go and implement some of the projects. Let's take a typical example of challenges in the northern sector. When the Bagri Dam is open, a lot of places get flooded. That we can provide an engineering solution. So we have provided some concepts to SADA and say, look, if you do 1, 2, 3, you can basically control the flooding. You can use that water to do irrigation. You can use it for a lot of things, even transportation if you develop a canal. So these are some initial concepts we have already presented to SADA. On the back of the conference, we are going to go into more detailed specifications in terms of some prescriptions and say, look, if you look at some of these things, if you do sell it to investors. And that is where SADA came out and said, look, why don't you also run a business investment forum on the back of the conference so that you can meet those who would invest and those who are bringing ideas could meet directly, engage and share the various ideas, and then see how we take it on from there. So that's where we, the institution, come in largely.
Doc, is there any research or any document which details what the people within the SADA area want? Or is it that because we are graduates and we are doctors, it is good for you to have a canal, it is good for you to have a shop, it is good for you to have a road, and therefore have it?
I think one of the key things is that, there are several researches across, even not within Ghana, but out of Ghana, that have been carried out about northern Ghana, about the Savannah area, and about Ghana's development as a whole. But we have noticed, especially in SADA, that most of these documents are either unavailable or when they are available, nobody even knows they exist. And I can just tell you that within the last 2 months, with support from UNDP, we have begun to put all these informations together. We have also begun to gather, and you will be surprised that even at the National Development Planning Commission, we have an infrastructure map, a comprehensive infrastructure map for this country. But it is not everybody who knows about it or who has access to it. And sometimes you see that people repeat the same process, the same research, which has already been done, and we throw in a lot of money. So we have said now, one of the key things as a facilitating agency is to make sure that we bring all informations together at one point. Once we have that information, we can begin to then look for synergy. We look for gaps first, and then see how together we can identify which are critical. Yes.
Your program has already begun.
Yeah.
Are we now looking for the research to begin, or that we are working on concrete? Listen, if we put a rubber plant up north, or if we put a cotton field within the region, look, about 90% of the people are interested, or 30% of people are interested, and therefore they would go there and do it rather than come down south. Is there anything? Because at the moment it's like guesswork.
I think there are...
With a goodwill, good intention. Good intention, guesswork.
Yeah. I think there are plans, but again, you must recognize that the needs of people always change. And because needs of people always change, even if there is a plan, annually you need to review it and see what additionality can be brought. But I will say at this point that in the SADA area, we don't have a comprehensive development plan and framework. And if you look at SADA's mandate, it says that SADA is supposed to provide leadership in developing a comprehensive plan that fits into the national plan for cohesion in national development. And that should have been the first thing on the books of SADA as it was formed. Unfortunately, we were pressured to go directly to begin to show evidence of delivery. And people are often not patient enough to let the plans come through, because plans, I mean, it's just because today IT has enhanced, but plans itself can take up to 3-5 years to develop. But these days with ICT, it is possible to do them much quicker. And we couldn't have achieved that at the time expectations were high on SADA to deliver. I think now we are working on the plans. We are gathering all the information together to see whether we can put it together into one holistic document that can then guide our future development. But we must recognize that even with that, we will need regularly to make some reviews. And that is why the Institution of Engineers coming on board, we are looking at a comprehensive infrastructure plan. But on the back of the plan, we are looking at critical projects that they will initiate designs, concepts, and lead us towards productivity.
I mean, one of the reasons why SADA failed was because of our illiterate politics, if I may say. Government of the day is desperate to show that I've done something. Therefore, catch a couple of chickens, plant a couple of trees so that I can go out there and say, I did this. And then it failed. But, you know, that politics and pressure is still prevalent today. How are you, and I'm sure now that they've instituted a new board, you probably even have double pressure, because you now have to even come up with something wild to say, we told you we'll fix it. So you are under even more pressure than the original guys who failed. How are you going to manage it?
I mean, it's unfortunate that the tug of politics or some level of partisanship seems to be associated with SADA. We all know that the idea of SADA transcends politics. That even the differences may be geographic classification. But at the beginning, during the time of the previous government, clearly the issue of SADA emerged then. Note that it was post the peer review mechanism of African countries during Kufuor's time, when Ghana placed itself as the first country to be peer reviewed, that the recommendations clearly came that the disparity in development between the northern Ghana and the rest of the country was so huge that youth migration, KIA, and all those things would become a security issue for this country. And that if Ghana wanted to reach middle income quickly, we needed to address the northern problem, the development there, to make sure that we don't increase crime in the south, to make sure that everybody is given equal opportunity to develop. And we recognize that even then, Kufuor's government had agreed and made a 25 million donation to start the establishment of a development fund for the northern area. So, equally, the NDC, when they came, recognized the need and continued, but just expanded geographically to include the northern parts of Volta and the northern parts of Brong-Ahafo region. But then, even the SADA Act itself was across parties approved. It was not only one party, it was both parties that recognized it and approved it. So, I mean, there is no basis for these political differences dragging SADA down. And more recently, you would have seen that when there was no budget allocation for SADA, that it was a minority MP who took this and championed it and raised voices. So I think that in politics, all our political figures recognize the need for SADA and are keen and interested in the way SADA should work to enhance the fortunes of the people of the northern Savannah ecological zone.
Michael, now SADA hasn't got concrete figures. Now, bear in mind that it spreads over 5 regions, 11 million people. Each of them will have their own preferences and what they would prefer to have within their SADA region. But there isn't a document to say, look, those north of the Volta want rice, those east of, Bolatanga want chickens, these ones want trees. And you guys are coming in now. You know, how are you going to help them when they don't know how much help they need?
First, recently you may have heard that the National Development Planning Commission is coming out with about a 40-year development plan. Mm-hmm. The idea is for us to make sure that all their development plans are linked up with the national whole. Mm-hmm. So this is where we are going to look at. Any infrastructure is expensive. Mm-hmm. So the first thing you want to look at is zoning. How are you going to zone your areas in terms of development? Where are your residential area? If you want to have industrial, where do you want to site the industrial area? Because without that proper layout, you get everything wrong. And typically,
we will build before we plan.
Exactly. And this is where we want to offer that kind of a technical advice and guidance to ensure. Exactly, because you see, the fear is that we are going to transfer what is happening in Accra and Kumasi to every other region, mm-hmm. where there's chaos in terms of traffic management, in terms of water, in terms of electricity, in terms of services. You see, because if you don't plan your infrastructure development properly, you don't get the returns in terms of investments. Mm-hmm. So if you put that kind of huge amount of money into building a road, you expect a certain service from that road, which is a certain time of travel and a certain level of quality on that road.
Safety.
Now, if you don't plan your infrastructure layout properly, you will, one, not get the service, and therefore the investment goes waste. I always cite this typical example. Between here and Kumasi, the surface of the road has improved over the last 20, 30 years, regularly being improved. But the question now is, has the time of travel improved? No. Simply because we have allowed towns and individual houses to encroach on our roads, on our highways. And what has resulted is that we've ended up putting speed ramps and slowing down the speed on the highways. So the service, in terms of the service that we expect from the road, we are not getting it. So it's wasted investment. Yeah. And these are the kind of things that we should look at very carefully in order not to replicate in other regions. So we are looking at some of these things, making sure that whatever plans they are coming up with are tied with the national plan possibly, and make sure that, look, things are done professionally and properly. Other than that, we'll end up throwing a lot of money again into SADA, and we will not realize the returns that we think we should get. So this is where we are focused on, and ensuring that, look, whatever comes out is the best and is in the supreme interest of this country, so by way of professional advice.
I mean, Doc, if I don't ask you this question, I think my viewers will be very upset. But I mean, they'll be thinking, well, is it business as usual? I mean, what happens to all that monies that were thrown into, shady and unprofessional jobs that are just gone down the drain? Is anything being, somebody paying us back our money, or that's it?
No, I think that, I mean, we all are aware that, I mean, there was an audit report which Joy FM was very strong in pushing out and following up. And that basically led to the leadership changes that we have seen in SADA. But, I mean, I know that the new board was tasked by the president to ensure that that audit report is investigated to the fullest, and that those who have been found culpable will be held responsible. I am aware that the board is significantly advanced in the process of completing this. We know that some arrangements with the Attorney General Office have already been initiated. I am not in a position, not being a member of the board, to go out on these, but I think shortly, and quite shortly, the board will be addressing these issues publicly and trying to bring a conclusion to it. We recognize that until these issues are dealt with, even SADA will not be able to have the legitimacy to continue to do its original work. And we cannot go on business as usual. There must be a conclusion to this process to allow the new SADA to emerge and continue to deliver. And I think the board has indicated strongly, and we have really a very strong board led by a formal SRAJ commissioner. So I think that, I mean, the country will be given full account of what has happened in SADA so that we can move forward.
Now, one fundamental mistake that I foresee which SADA is doing is that as Ghanaians, we really believe in building the roads and the houses and the canals and everything for development. But the human capital itself, we completely neglect. So we will come up with all these fine documents. Even if we found money and used it, it turn out that we won't maintain it. We don't even know how to use it. I mean, and I give an example, like till this day, you have to undertake a car because they don't even know that because they're driving slow, they have to be in their right lane. I mean, as basic as that, the human, the brain capacity we have in the town don't know that because I'm carrying pure water, let me just come to the right lane. No, he's happily on the left lane, and even the police would undertake. So we're going to do all this, and we know that the education up north is very, very low. So we give all these fantastic things. Who is going to manage, look after it, and maintain it?
No, I think you are right that human resource, human capital is very important. But generally, I mean, development itself is complex, and there are several elements involved, including human capital, including infrastructure. You need to find a balance, and in that balance, you need to find a way of integrating the development to get the desired effect. I don't think that SADA entirely has not considered education. In fact, in the new thinking and the new direction, the consideration of an educational fund that targets specific educational needs for the SADA area. I mean, you will hear very often still, we don't have doctors, 1 or 2 doctors somewhere, but the health needs of the people are as important as any other thing. If they don't have good health, I mean, they can't do any productive work. So there are several human issues that we need to consider. And luckily enough for us, UNDP had done a SADA area human development report, which we will soon be launching. And that report will give us clearly what are the human indicators that we need to look at and how we can target to make sure that we get benefits from it that will then act as the catalyst to holding our infrastructure and other investments in place.
Let me just make a point on that. I think that the issue of human resource in the northern sector has been overplayed a little. I think there's a lot of human resource. The point here is that a lot of people rather migrate to the south because of economic reasons. Mm-hmm. So I think here that the issue is if we can set up pools of development out there in the north, you would get the human capacity to manage them. The issue is that because we haven't created those growth opportunities out there, people would not go. Because look, if you go through hospitals here in Accra, you find medical doctors who are a lot of them out from the north. You find people, and even people in the south. It's one nation. Yeah. You will be willing to move out there to help in terms of development. The real issue is that there are no growth pools there, and people don't see opportunities there, and that is why they are not going there. Mm. But if we are able to set up good infrastructure, provide certain basic facilities, people will move out there. So I think that we should look more closely at the issue of providing growth opportunities there, and then people will be willing to migrate out there, because we are economic beings, and once people see economic opportunities, they'll go out there very quickly.
You see, I also think that's the mistake we are doing. You see, because Doc is mentioning like schooling, and you tend to school people within Accra, and then you find out that all the things that they are learning about is in Cape Coast, so when they finish, they're going. So you realize that within the Savannah area, it's probably more, you have more yams. And therefore, if somebody was to go to school in yam preservation and yam chip and yam flour and something that, adds value to yam, after education, they won't leave. But if you train him to be a doctor and then put a little post there and say, well, you're a doctor, now that's your little post, they're not going to stay. And I think that's where we miss. Actually finding what's needed locally and become an expert in it.
You see, let me give you a typical example. I have my own class, those of us who graduated. Mm-hmm. Very few of them are practicing engineering today. Many of them are into finance. You understand? Many of them have moved into other disciplines. So the real issue is, are there opportunities? People would gladly go into. Once the opportunities don't exist, people tend to look at that. So you could train someone and say, look, you learn how to rear goods, do yam. He doesn't see it as profitable, because if he does that, that is hard work, a lot of hard work.
Then you haven't trained them properly.
No, you see, what we don't realize, again, I'm doing a little farming on the side, so I tell people that what you need to realize is that farming is a lot of hard work. Yeah. But a lot of us don't run it as a business. So you continue to put in a lot of money. Once in a while you get a little money, you think, oh, it's good. But that is not it. The real issue is how much are you really getting? So the rich people you see as rich farmers today mostly started maybe 30, 40 years ago. But to start making a lot of money out of farming is not easy. It's not an easy thing, because in terms of price, when there's glut, the prices just go down. And that farmer is not assured of a certain fixed price in terms of the supply that they are bringing. So it's a tricky business there. So once people think that, oh, well, I'm trained as an agriculturist, I'm a farmer, but, well, it's not yielding anything. Maybe let me switch into banking and finance. It may bring more returns. They'll quickly switch over. So the real issue is to create the opportunities and facilities that allow people to practice what they have learned. If we don't do that, it's going to be difficult to.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in the direction he has taken, I mean, it is also very important, and we have looked at it. SADA has identified what we call growth pools, 9 growth pools. And the growth pools are based on the concept that, you know, in the early 70s, even in Achampon's time, the North produced a lot of rice. And there are huge rice values. When trade regulations did not allow internal production, but rather quick importation, all these things just collapsed. But these are very fertile lands that if you provide the right infrastructure for irrigation, the right infrastructure for drying, the right infrastructure for processing, and processing it in a way that meets international standards, no stones in it, we can draw people back to these growth pools, especially if we will integrate that with some housing mechanism that allows them to make that place a permanent abode, with electricity and other things for them to enjoy facilities just like any other person. They will stay there. And these growth pools, we are looking at how to develop them very well. I'll give you an example.
Let me take a break here, and then I come back. We hear that example because it's getting interesting. Don't move. Well, thank you very much for staying. I'm talking to 2 engineers who are really educating us. But this section, we're going to really focus on how the new SADA is going to work. What are some of the details that are going in? And go with me, Dr. Emmanuel Abreinga and Michael Kusidede educating us. Doc, you were give me an example before.
Yes, I was just talking about the issues of the growth pools and taking on from what Engineer Dede had said, that the growth pools are critical to making sure that we bring people together, offer them opportunities, and that will reduce the issues of migration, because people generally look for opportunities, and wherever there are opportunities, they will go. But we know also that infrastructure cost is not easy, and often private sector is unable to do it. And we are recognizing that more and more these days, public sector, private sector, working together in public-private relationship, you will be able to achieve that. And I was just giving an example that there is a place in around between the northern and upper east, they call it overseas. I mean, it's an overseas partly because when we are in the rainy season and it rains heavily, you cannot go. It's very short, almost in northern region, but you have to go round, go through upper east and come back to it. So they call it overseas. So near, yet so far because of the floods. And we, together with the private sector company, Wienco Ghana Limited, were able to raise significant amount of money to begin the process of irrigating that area. When we started doing that, European Union came, they saw the potential for agri-productivity. They also have thought of doing some of the roads and improving them. So together, if you can bring various actors to play critical roles in bringing little forms of infrastructure, we are able to then attract people to live in the area. And several incidents of investments have happened in the overseas area. We are beginning to see a transformation of the economy around the overseas area, which hitherto was a place nobody wanted to go. Now everybody around that area wants to move there because there is electricity, there are schools, there are health services, and things look bright for the people in the overseas area.
Michael, what are the details for this new project?
Well, For the conference itself,
Yeah.
we're going to have 2 plenary sessions, 4 technical sessions, a ministerial roundtable. We'll have a private sector roundtable. We'll have development partners roundtable, induction ceremony for new engineers. That's one of the very first. And then we'll have the engineering profession has been largely male dominated.
Okay.
But over the last 20, 30 years, we have a lot of women now taking interest in engineering. So we're going to have a special session on women in engineering. We call them a wine. Then the engineering students calabash. Here, we're going to throw a competition to engineering students in tertiary institutions to come up with ideas. We're going to give them 5 sets of questions and say, come up with the ideas to solve these problems. Okay. It's going to be a competition. And then we'll assess and give the winners a prize. So that's one of the things that we want to do. Again, it's part
Can you
of...
give them Fadama?
Pardon me?
Fadama.
Yes, it's a possibility. It's a possibility.
They might come up with something. Solve Fadama.
Solve Fadama.
Then the issue of that, there's going to be matchmaking and business deals as well. So this basically are the activities that are going to take place within the conference itself. And we are also inviting a guest speaker. His name is Dr. Victor Kaur. He's basically an international consultant who works with Kenya, and he's also one of the men who will be presenting a paper on the Singapore transformation story, the role of engineers in Singapore's transformation from a third world to first world in one generation. So again, this is supposed to create the excitement to drive the conference, basically for us to look at how did Singapore do it. What can we learn? What are the things we need to do, basically? So he's going to make a presentation. We also invited, because it's also an investment forum, we are also inviting a banker in the person of Dr. George Donko, who is the vice president of ECOWAS Bank. Again, he'll also be making some submission. You hopefully they should be able to stay with us for a few days to sit in some of the roundtable exchanges so that they could help direct and focus certain ideas, so that at the end of the day, it's not just the usual thing of going to a conference and then walking away. For us, the climax of the event on the Saturday will be our banquet, where we would also inaugurate the new president, who will be sworn into office, and our new council members will also be sworn into office. But basically, these are the activities that are going to be involved in the conference itself.
Look, one thing that really, and I think it's cross-borders in our genes, is implementation. I mean, we come up with fantastic ideas. Engineers will come on board and give us all the examples. We'll file it and shelf it. How do we make sure that even if 40% is implemented, at least we can pat ourselves on the back and say we started something?
No, I think it is right. And implementation often has challenges based on several constraints. One of it could just be that there is not enough financial availability.
Ours is willpower.
No, I mean, that's the first one. The second one is willpower.
Ghana, I mean, 80% is willpower to say, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. But, I mean, so I have observed from the relationship with the Ghana Institution of Engineers and the new leadership in SADA that there is a strong urge to move very quickly. I mean, if you notice the way this engineering forum, Engineering Week and the SADA conference have been planned and the speed with which we have engaged people, there is general urgency now to make sure that we deliver. Remember that SADA is already wounded. And one of the reasons why SADA did not find the strength by itself to just go out to organize a business forum was because of this wound. And we realized that the Ghana Institution of Engineers, their annual conferences have already been attracting people. And we said, let's work together. Let's see the engineering expertise you have. We will show commitment and readiness to have you. And I mean, Engineer Dede will confirm to you that they have traveled to SADA over the past months several times. And we meet together.
Do we have timelines that in 10 years we should see maybe 400 other kilometers of road, or X amount of irrigated land, or that? I mean, are there any timelines so we can?
Those will emerge immediately after the conference. What we are trying now towards the conference is to dialogue, to negotiate, to agree, to look at even policy measures. There may just be policy measures which are not allowing these implementation and policies to get through. So we want to look at that. And together with the Ghana Institution of Engineers, we will come out. What is the infrastructure framework that we need in the SADA area? Which type of policies do we need to tackle? Even if they may need some form of legislative effect to happen, we will push for that. But more importantly, because of the business forum, we want to offer international investors opportunities. Tell them, you know, the Savannah area has the greatest opportunity to feed Ghana and probably West Africa. We have flatlands, which makes farming, commercial farming, quite easy. But the issue is, how come we have never done this? So we want to sit and say, how come we have never done this? Who else can help bring in resources to do? I will tell you one thing. We already even have, even in the SADA area, projects. We have the Ghana Commercial Agriculture Project with nearly about 100 and something million. And then we have Northern Rural Growth Program with significant amount of money. We have several projects, but we need to then find a way by we can bring them all under an umbrella that pushes for effectiveness, pushes for quick delivery.
I mean, everybody knows I have an opinion, so it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't see there's $100 million international airport being built up, Tamale. And I look at the needs of the three regions up north today. And if I were to do a priority list, I personally, you know, $100 million airport won't come on top. But I don't see champions of the North saying that, listen, give me $100 million cotton field or $100 million share nut processing plant or $100 million university or nurseries or something. I don't know if I'm being...
I mean, I want to take this and to say that, you see, as much as you have an opinion, there are also contrary opinions. And one of we who have been on the ground have noticed that for northern Ghana, export is virtually impossible. The cost of transporting things to Tema sometimes is even more than the product itself. And if we were to engage in export significantly, we need an international airport. We need storage facilities and an international airport. And if you look, the most expensive of them all is the international airport. You will be unable to do that by individual groups. But if we were able to get that, the other investments you are thinking of, maybe private sector people could, in their small ways, begin to do storage centers, cold stores, and other things, and begin to export. Until we have that, the airport, every other investment that seeks to promote export will not be effective.
Let me see what Michael said. Because of exports, you know, share nut, whatever it is, you know, you need an international airport. Would you put out on your priority list?
Let me put it this way. I need to actually see the assessment that was done in terms of why do we need an airport to be able to make an informed comment on the decision to put up an airport. But we are looking and saying, well, if there's going to be an airport, from our point of view, if there's going to be an airport, what can we do to make the airport sustainable in terms of accommodation? And these are some of the things we would want to be looking at. Because irrespective of our views at the moment, the investment is being made, the airport is being built. So from our point, we are going to look and say, well, if this airport is being put up, what are we going to do to make it commercially viable? Because other than that, you may soon realize that we may be using monies from Accra, the Kotoka area, to manage the other airport. Because running an airport is quite an expensive business. It's no cheap infrastructure, and managing it itself is a lot of money. So that is where we are going to be approaching the issue from. And say, look, the airport is being built, irrespective of our opinions. How do we ensure that it becomes commercially viable in terms of future infrastructure development, tying in with other growth opportunities that may come up within the region itself? But like you said, implementation is a major issue. But within implementation is likely from our own attitudes. from our own attitude. You see, we are in a hurry to get results. That is very important. We need to get results. But there is also the need to spend the time to plan and to think. And because of our impatience, sometimes we run into implementation quickly and then realize that, hey, maybe we should have done this way. And then we start doing stopgap measures, which then increases cost. And then we lose hope, and then everything just deteriorates. So I think that in as much as we want to things to be done, we need to hasten slowly by ensuring that we follow the proper channels of planning before execution. And that everything, because even in execution, you must plan how you are going to execute. But sometimes people don't plan how they are going to execute. They start. I always tell typical artisans that you are an artisan. Say you are a plumber. You come to me and say you want to do a job. Then you come, you look at the job, you go, come back with your toolbox. Then suddenly you realize that, I need a saw. Then you go back again, come back. Then you realize, oh, I need a 15 spanner. Then you walk back again. It tells me that you have not planned your execution, which is a major failure with a lot of the things we do around. So unless we discipline ourselves to go through that thought process and say, look, we need to plan the execution, we'll lose out. And it increases costs drastically. these are the things that we need to look at.
I'm going to take a break, and when I come back, these are some of the thoughts that I want to find out if it's been factored into SADA. Now, at the moment, the doctor-to-patient ratio within the 3 regions up north is 93,000 to 1. At the moment, we're not recording any dentist whatsoever up north. And the last time, there were 7,000 teachers short. And the list is endless. What is SADA doing before you start building on top of this? Don't move. The break. I was throwing some statistic as to, what's prevalent within the area. Let's use the 3 regions up north. 93,000 patients to a doctor. No dentist. 7,000 teachers short. So many classrooms short, and we're going to try and bridge the north and the south. Have we factored all these into the new SADA?
I think, sometimes when you listen to the statistics, it's really, frightening and so depressing. And sometimes it may even lead you to think that, nothing can be done about it. But I think that there are many things that we can do. And I still want to just touch back on what Engineer Dede has said. Some of these are founded on the fact that the income levels of people are very low, or people don't even have incomes. So they are unable to provide for their children adequately, and so they are unable to get the right education, and so there is shortage of teachers, and equally, the poor people are unable to go to the hospital. Very often people, just a small illness that they could go to hospital and get healed, they look at the 5 cities that they will expend to go to hospital and rather prefer to stay home, try anything until they leave the soil quite in a miserable state. And so we who see that often recognize that there is a strong urge to make sure that we create an economic hub in the northern ecological zone that will take advantage of the other Sahelian countries. We still are comparatively in a better climatic conditions than people from Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger.
Look, you see, but I've said this on air so many times that the crusade to bridge the north should come from the owners of the north, the royals of the north, i.e. yourself, northerner. Those of the south who say, it's like those in the fire feel how it's burning. But all too often, I don't see, the northerners fighting for the north.
You see, let me make a little. I think that the thing is not for the indigents alone. It's a national problem. And we need to look at it as that. Let me give you a typical example. Why do you think that even someone who is from the north, trained as a medical doctor, would rather stay in Accra than go back to the north.
So that's what my point was leading.
Exactly. You see, again, it's all about opportunities. I sit here in Accra and I think that, look, I have access to internet, I have better facilities for internet. My kids have access to good schools. They may not be good schools in the north. So it doesn't attract me to go back to the north and then my family will be here in Accra. It doesn't work. So it's important that we develop those basic structures that allow for some of these professionals, although there may be selfish reasons, human beings are naturally a bit selfish, to attract them there, to give them the basics of life. To say that, look, if you go back there, your kids have a good school to attend, they have good hospitals there where they can go to, you have good services in terms of electricity, water, telephony, everything works. Once people are sure of those basics of life, you will find that people will naturally go there and say, look, why worry myself, come to Accra, traffic, driving through traffic. I mean, these are the things, and I think that we need to look at it more nationally, because even here in Accra, let's get it. It's not just people from the north who migrate here, from the Volta region, from a western region. Everyone migrates into Accra.
Accra has become the capital.
Exactly.
Okay, unfortunately, we've done very urbanizing in our development.
Exactly.
But however, whichever region you go to, you tend to find out that the people or the engineers that fight for whatever development they want to come within that area.
But SADA would not have come about if the people of the north hadn't for a long time since independence persistently talk about lopsided development in the area. And the very early people who even led the Northern Development Fund and also the Savannah Accelerated Development Authority have been people of Northern indigenous. But you cannot pursue a national development agenda like this on the basis of ethnicity or
no, but you have to own it.
No, I mean, yes, the ownership is a national ownership that we must all, you see, the benefits accruing to the by the development of SADA to the country.
It's enormous.
It's enormous.
Exactly.
And it is not to the SADA area.
But it will be very rare for, let's say, Osei barima.asare leave Cape Coast and run all the way up north to champion a cause. It would have to have somebody from there to champion that cause.
Let me just put this, Accra is not what it is because of guns.
No.
It's a national thing. You understand? So it is important that we look at the SADA region also in that aspect and say, look, it is not about just the indigenous, but it's about the national development. Take cocoa. We have sold cocoa and government has benefited from cocoa. But if you go to a lot of cocoa growing areas, what are the livelihoods and opportunities there? Not too many. So it is important that we begin to look at it and say, look, it's a national thing. If we develop more growth pools, it helps this nation as a whole. Rather than looking at that, oh, as for you, it is for you to develop your place. No. Because again, that's why I bring in the cocoa.
To develop, to champion, yes. Not to develop.
But there's even a limitation to that, because then it brings in the issues of ethnicity. Because then it becomes polarized. You understand? If we don't look at it as a national issue,
but I think that
it becomes polarized.
This investment forum and the work with the Ghana Institution of Engineers is one example of a championship that is founded around a specialized professional institution. We would like the Ghana Institution of Architects, with Ghana Institution of Surveyors to come to the SADA area and bring their expertise on board in the same way as the Ghana Institution of Engineers are doing, to make sure that we find the solutions to the infrastructure problems in the SADA area. But more importantly, for this conference, we know that when the conference ends and the investment forum ends, we would have been able to create enough awareness about the SADA area, the development opportunities, and we may begin to see people of northern extraction, of southern extraction, of international extraction beginning to bring resources. The critical thing is to find a way to galvanize and mobilize significant resources to the SADA area so that economic activities will begin to grow. And we have agreed under which we can start from. We have renewable energy, we have a lot of sunlight that we can use, solar systems and other things, and find ways even to do off-grid solar systems that will be centralized to our homes and begin to introduce new technologies that lead to development in the SADA area. And this must be a priority. And we are happy that the president is considering being part of this investment forum so that we can use it to highlight the opportunities and bring the youth together. We are bringing along a cultural session. We are bringing along tourism opportunities. We want to make sure that at the end of this investment forum, everybody will recognize the great opportunities in the SADA area, and we can then together move to address the issues of poverty, create wealth, and then we will see reverse migration from the south to the north.
Land has always been a problem and a hindrance on our development. Would something like that be on the program and have some exclusivity to say, listen, if SADA needs your land, we are overriding it, we're getting it, or we're going to use it to hinder our own progress?
I think that as part of the conference, one of the things, because some chiefs are going to be brought in and issues like the chiefs themselves will see opportunity and say, look, if people need lands, we will facilitate that process. And this is where SADA itself is going to help promote that. But again, I think that it is very unfortunate that we make a lot of excuses about land management in this country. Look, government doesn't own land, but government determines land use, which is primary. And so it is unfortunate that our governments continue to make excuses that, oh, because we don't own land, that's why there are no problems. Once you zone and say that, yes, the land belongs to you, but as far as government and national development is concerned, it can only be used for farming. It ends there. But because we refuse to enforce these laws, that is what leads to the problem. So I think that the excuses that governments make, that because we do not own land, that is why we have problems, is completely unacceptable. Because government determines land use, period. Government doesn't own it, but it determines that this land can only be used for industrial purposes. This land can only be used for farming. This is residential. End of story. But we ourselves have failed to enforce those laws. And that is where the problem is. So I think that there's no excuse about land use.
And we are encouraging the chiefs that during this process, they'll begin to look at ways by which they can also use the land as forms of equity for investment when private sector people, rather than come and you sell the whole land and you deprive your community and generations of an asset which is not exclusively yours.
Thank you very much, and that's very important to my friend Chief. You don't have the cash, you're like me, so that your land is your investment into whatever business if it's viable. So at the end of the month, whatever profit or revenue they make, you take some. Yeah. Maybe if you're not there, even your sisters will also come and enjoy. Very important point. But gentlemen, thank you very, very much. That's all time would allow us. Tomorrow, or on Thursday, if I may say, on Joy FM, those of you followed, that's my opinion. Isn't it interesting that that's what I'm talking about, that we are developing infrastructure and leaving the human resource? Don't miss this show, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. on Joy FM. It's going to be interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.